All right, everyone, welcome back. I'm super excited to have another guest here today. She is Rachel Beider out of Brooklyn, New York, and I think you're in for a real treat. So, Rachel, she's a practicing massage therapist, but so much more than that. She's also the CEO of this amazing company. They've got multiple locations. She's an author and also a business consultant. So, a little bit about her. So, she actually grew up with scoliosis, and she knows firsthand what it's like to struggle with pain and go out and search for relief. So when she became a licensed massage therapist, she worked for a surgeon who performed mastectomies for women with breast cancer and assisting recovery with massage. She later worked for a physical therapy studio on injuries in preventative medicine, and this together just fueled her desire to create a space for helping and healing through science-backed clinical orthopedic massage. So currently she's the CEO of Press Modern Massage, which was established in 2008. Now, Press Modern Massage was originally three separate massage businesses, as I understand, that she actually came together and grew into this beautiful award-winning business comprised of these multiple studios. She's also an author, Press Here Massage for Beginners. And so this helps readers learn how to massage at home to relieve pain, alleviate tension, increase relaxation, recover, and prepare for physical activities. And lastly, to top it all off, she's a business consultant where her mission is to help massage therapists create a sustainable, thriving business that meets their needs so they can serve the community of their clients. So I'm super thankful to have you here today. How you doing?
Thank you so much for having me.
So I want to start, I've got this bio, but the bio and this can only say so much. So kind of tell us more about you.
Absolutely. So I started my career just about 11 years ago. I went to Swedish Institute of Massage in New York City. And then right out of school, I really just wanted to work for as many different kinds of businesses as I could to start to understand what's working with them, what's not working with them, and really just to get my hands on people and to start practicing. So when I got out of school, I started working for a surgeon, a chiropractor. I worked at a spa. I worked for a yoga studio. You name it, I put in time there. And I realized very quickly there were things that I loved about those practices, and then there were things I really did not like. I really like to feel impactful in the work that I do and not like a bystander. And often when we work for others, if we have good suggestions, they may or may not go, noticed. So for me, it was very important in my own life to work for a studio that I felt like really resonated with my values and, was about the kind of work that I wanted to do and the way I wanted to do it. And I just couldn't find anything that made sense for me. So I decided to start my own practice, which is well and good, but I didn't have any money. And in fact, I had quite a lot of debt from school. So initially, I started my practice by working out of my living room, which I don't recommend. I was living in a fifth floor walk-up with 3 roommates, and our living room often smelled like whatever we had been cooking the night before. So that wasn't quite working for me. Then I tried bringing my table to other people's homes, which is a really popular thing to do. But I am about 106 pounds and my table is about 30 or 35 of those pounds. And for me, it was a little bit too stressful carrying the table up and down flights of stairs in New York City where all these walk-ups. So that wasn't really ideal for me as well. And I really just wanted a space, but I didn't have money to rent a space. So I started looking around for different opportunities to get into someone else's space. So I actually found a physical therapy office not too far from my house. And I went in and I asked, do you have massage available at this facility? And they said, no. And I said, well, tell you what, I will trade you. I'll work for free 2 days a week here. In exchange, let me use the space when you're not using it. It'll be a trade. And they kind of looked at me like, okay, who's this precocious 24-year-old? But they gave me a little bit of grace, and it was May of 2008. And I had about 10 clients who were mostly friends of mine. And by August, I had 110 clients. And it was really amazing to see when I was doing those free 10-minute massages or 15-minute massages for their patients, a lot of them were like, hey, can I come back and see you again? And I was like, absolutely. And in fact, here's a $20 off card for your first appointment, new clients only. So it was like I was giving away free samples of the work that I was doing. So that's a huge amount of the clients that I started initially getting. And then I realized, and at the time I was still working for a spa and a chiropractor. So I was working a lot. I was working probably 6 or 7 days a week, which I don't recommend for a long period of time. But sometimes in the beginning, you got to do what you got to do. So I started looking for other people in the neighborhood who see a volume of their own private clients. So for example, I was really excited about hairdressers because they see 50 customers a week. I was also really excited about personal trainers because their clients care about their physical fitness, they're sore, and they can afford my services. So I would start to reach out to these customers, like the physical therapy, sorry, not physical, the personal trainers or the hairdressers, and trade them massage for haircut or color, massage for training. And I would give them a stack of these cards, these just very cheap, Vistaprint, $20 off your first appointment, new clients only cards. I'm also a fan of using dollar amounts, not percentages, because a lot of people, when you get a coupon handed to you with a percentage, you throw it in the trash. But $20 feels like a really solid, people know that amount. Like having a written dollar amount feels a little more valid. And I found great success with this just very simple, easy to use paper thing. And a lot of them started sending me clients and then their friends and friends, and it just grew from there.
Yeah, that's a fantastic story. There's so many places that I want to dive into. So I think the first place that I'm interested in is going in and was it out of need, just going in, looking at that first time of getting your space, saying, okay, I can't, like walking up and down these stairs is super difficult. What either gave you the idea or like what really pushed you to say, okay, I'm going to go reach out to these people? And then, I mean, really you just kind of started hustling your way to building up your clientele. What do you think was driving you? Where did you get that from?
Being broke. So, not being broke will really push you to do lots of things. I mean, I've been a nanny and a waitress and a dog walker, but I realized very quickly, you have to put yourself out there. And I think it was Tim Ferriss who said, the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the amount of uncomfortable conversations you're willing to have. And so, sure, going into the physical therapy office, I had no idea what was in there. I didn't know if they already had a massage therapist working or if they were hiring for one, which would have been convenient because I lived in the neighborhood. But when I realized they had something that I needed, which was space, and I could provide them something they needed, it's not like I had thought about it in advance. I literally was just like, all right, I need space. I wonder if anyone would trade me because I don't have money, but I have time.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I love that's one of my favorite quotes by Tim Ferriss. Definitely something that's really true, and I think more people should start to apply it when they're trying to grow, whether in business or just in their life in general. So to fast forward to, I mean, now more or less, you have Press Modern Massage, and it is maybe a conglomerate, for lack of a better word, where you took three separate entities and unified them under one brand. What was what's the story of how that came to be?
Sure, absolutely. So when I started my first practice, this was early days of the internet, 2008. It sounds like a long time ago now, but there wasn't online scheduling yet. People barely had websites. And I had come out of an art school background. So my background is I went to massage school, and before that I went to art school. So I built a website, a very rudimentary website, back before there were great tools like we have now. And I realized because I don't have an ad budget, search engine optimization was going to be my best bet. The internet was really my storefront. So I started to study search engine optimization, which basically just means, how am I coming up? If someone is searching for what I'm offering, am I on that first page? Am I in that top result? Because when was the last time you went past the first page of anything to look at something? So I realized in the neighborhood that I was in, when you look for massage, there were a few places that were coming up, like yoga studios who did it, but not a whole lot, which is why I chose the neighborhood I did to start my business. So basically, after I had spent that summer working for free for that physical therapy studio, eventually I asked them if I could rent space from them for money instead of time, because I was running out of time, but I actually started to have money. They said no, they weren't interested. So I found a spot down the street that was available. It was one little room in a 2-room space. And I was like, okay, this is a scary leap, but I'm going to start paying for space there. And I knew that clients would likely be searching for certain terms, like the neighborhood I was in, which was called Williamsburg, and massage. So I figured I really wanted williamsburgmassage.com, but it wasn't available, which I was very sad about. And then I flipped the words around and I saw that massagewilliamsburg.com was available for the price of a sandwich. So I took it and I called my business Massage Williamsburg. Not only that, but I also decided to buy the domain names of all of the other areas that interested me at the time. So that would include Greenpoint, Bushwick, all these other neighborhoods that I thought, people are going to be searching for these two things. And Google has changed their algorithm a million times of how SEO works, search engine optimization. So in those days, having two keywords as your business name was actually very helpful, and probably still is, truthfully. Having incoming links from relevant sources is helpful. Having social media, as that has become available, is helpful. Making sure that your site is mobile optimized is helpful. But basically, when I started this business, Massage Williamsburg is what I chose to name it because I felt like for SEO, it gave me the best shot, and boy, was I right. So that's how that business started. And when I got the opportunity to open up my second location, I struggled with it because I was like, ooh, it's in a neighborhood called Greenpoint, about 15 minutes north of Williamsburg. And do I want to have Massage Williamsburg Greenpoint? Is that confusing? How would the SEO for that look? And also my accountant and lawyer were advising me, started as a different LLC. One was an S Corp, started as an LLC, and started as a different legal entity just to keep them safe legally. So I started it under a different name, different bank account, different QuickBooks account, like different everything. And that was probably the first mistake I made. And that's not true. I've made a lot of mistakes, but that was one of the mistakes I made, was branding it differently. Because then when we would get really wonderful press, like we got one of our clients, Freya, she quoted us, she wrote a nice blurb for us in Vogue. And it was great for one of our studios, but not the whole brand, So fast forward a couple of years, I opened up our third location. Again, different name, hyper-local. Great for SEO, but not so consistent with the brand. And it never occurred to me, which I only realized recently by dating a lawyer, that all three studios, while they're different LLCs, different entities, could all be DBA, doing business as the same entity. So we decided, okay, let's brand, one umbrella before we open up more locations. And so now we are Press Modern Massage. We rebranded just a few weeks ago, and so far so good.
That's amazing. Now I want to go back and look to it because you make opening new businesses sound like it's nothing, just like putting on a new pair of shoes. So what was this process? We've kind of got the beginning of, okay, now I have my first space, but what was it like going from the first to the second? Like what was the timeline like? What was it like going through that growth process?
Sure. So I've been really fortunate in that none of my spaces are storefronts. I don't believe in spending the extra money. In New York, a storefront could be $10,000 more than the rent you pay for an interior suite. So because I realized that the internet is my storefront, that frees me up to be inside commercial suites where you're buzzing in at the door. And, and there are obviously areas where it's cheap enough to have a storefront, but for me, it was inaccessible at the time. So in my commercial suite in Williamsburg, I started with one little room. I was renting a 2-room space from someone else, and a space down the hall became available. And I realized it was actually only $50 more than the space that I was currently paying for, which made me understand that I was paying 90% of the rent of that 2-room space that she had rented me. So I said, for $50 more, I could build 3 little rooms into this space. I'm going to do it. So I took that suite and built up 3 little rooms and a reception. And I immediately rented one of those rooms out to an acupuncturist because I had no need for all of those rooms. And I should mention, I hired my first employee before doing that. So while I was still in that 1-room space, I was working at a spa 2 days a week just because I was so afraid to let go of my day job, of my regular job. And so I realized that my space was empty 2 days a week while I was working at the spa. And if I hired someone, one of my former classmates who I love, I could give her clients those 2 days while I'm at the spa. And so I would literally be doing a massage at the spa and then answering the phone, calling clients back, texting her, booking her appointments, which is crazy because this is before online booking was a thing. But basically, I was doubling my income by working at the spa while I wasn't at my studio and then having her there. And eventually, I decided just to split the day in half. So we were open 7 days a week. At the time, I think it was like 10 in the morning till 8 at night. So we would split the day like 10 to 3, 3 to 8. And she would see clients some mornings, I would see clients other mornings, and then vice versa on the evenings. So when it came time for me to build out that second suite, I moved completely to that suite, and we built 3 little treatment rooms in there. And what was great about that was now each of us could have our own room. But once there was more room, I was like, ooh, I kind of want to hire more people, because with that split shift, that means, even though we were only in 2 of those rooms and the third was rented out, that's 28 shifts in a week. And nobody wants to work more than like 4 or 5. So I started just hiring a few other folks to help me out during the days and times that I didn't want to be there, couldn't be there. And I quit the job at the spa. So the great thing about that building was I was in that space for, I think, like 3 years. And then another suite became available in the building. I asked my landlord, could I take 2 suites? Could I build this into 3 more rooms? And he said, sure, why not? So I built 3 more rooms in that space. And then all of a sudden I had 6. I had a suite in the downstairs and a suite on the main floor. And of course, when the neighbors moved like a year and a half after that across the hall, I was like, give me that one too. So now we have 3 suites in one building. And that whole process probably took, I think, like 7 years, maybe something like that. And then I realized we're pretty much capacity. Like, I don't want to open up more, and there aren't any more available. I would have taken them for a break room and like a bigger storage area, but I don't want to open up any more in Williamsburg. I really wanted a space in Greenpoint, which is the neighborhood just north of ours. And this time I decided, rather than doing just 3 rooms, I wanted to make it bigger, because the build out is so intensive and takes so much time. So I wanted to do 9 rooms or 8 rooms all at once, with one big suite, just one space. And I was working on a project at the time where I was interviewing entrepreneurs who have started their practices. And I found a woman who started a Pilates studio, and I was looking around this building she was in, and I was like, gosh, this is a beautiful space. Do you think there's anything available? And she says, as a matter of fact, one of the neighbors just moved out. So I took that space. I asked my bank to extend my line of credit. I asked a friends and family round of like, hey, I need $30,000 more. Can anyone lend me this? I'll give you a 6% interest rate. And I got a bunch of responses, thankfully, from my network. And it was a big leap for me, because typically when I had done a build out, it was very small and like, 3 rooms. It's not expensive. It's walls, doors, floors, lights, sound, everything. But from having done it once, and then a second time with the second suite, and then a third time with the third suite, I knew what to do. I knew the contractors I liked working with. I had a list of every single thing that you need to purchase to make it happen. So it became easier the second time I did it, because I already knew what to expect. And that time I also recorded the timeline of each week, what to expect for the framing. And okay, this is the week we usually do electricity, and this is the week, and we got it down to this like 10-week process, maybe 12 weeks by the time, start to finish, because these are raw, empty spaces. So we have to do walls, doors, floors, like everything, like choose the door handles, choose the light switches. So I opened up Greenpoint, I guess it's like 2.5 years ago, and immediately rented out 1 room to an acupuncturist. That's kind of my MO. I don't need all of those rooms. I'm a big fan of sharing the space with other folks. And when I opened up my Dumbo location, I guess it's like 6 or 7 months ago now, I decided, again, I rent out one of those rooms to a chiropractor. So Williamsburg has 9 rooms in 3 separate suites. Greenpoint has 8 rooms in 1 suite, and Dumbo has 8 rooms in 1 suite. So there's 25 rooms altogether, and that's how we've got to where we are. Wow,
That's just unbelievably impressive, really. So one of the things I want to dive into then, because I know that who's watching or listening, there's the business side, which I love, but I know a lot of people are going to be interested in, just from a practitioner's point of view, what kind of work were you doing? What was your hands-on time like? What kind of clients were you seeing? Like, what did, I guess, really just being a practitioner, what did that look like during this process?
Absolutely. So the kind of work that I love to do is very clinical. And it was one of the things that I love the clinical work of like the physical therapy office or the chiropractic office, but I didn't like how cold it felt. Like I didn't like the paper sheets and the bright white lights. It just wasn't very relaxing. I loved the vibes of the spa feel, but I didn't like how it was like, spas can be very corporate. The music can be terrible. I didn't like that it was so, I don't know, you have to like push products on people. I just didn't like the overall vibe of it. I mean, I liked some of it, but I tried to pick and choose the things that I liked about working for some places and other places and kind of put them together. So what I came up with, the work that we were doing is very, very clinical, a lot of trigger point therapy, and basically thorough health intake form. I decided it wasn't worth my time to do 30-minute sessions. So we only offer an hour or 90 minutes. I also hated that at spas, you would have like 50 minutes hands-on and then a 10-minute break back to back to back to back. That felt exhausting. That pace doesn't work for me. So I decided to do a full 60 minutes of hands-on table time with a 30-minute break in between. Sorry, my dog. And so each time, we were doing these full hours and full 90 minutes with a half-hour break, which sounds like it's a lot, but by the time you wash your hands and change the table over and do a stretch and show the client a stretch, that actually goes by pretty quickly. Sorry, my dog. Winston, it's okay, buddy. So, I think when I set up my business, this is really appealing to other massage therapists as employees, because, most places when you're working at a spa, it's just this exhausting pace that's really not sustainable for a lot of people. So that's something that I do a little bit differently.
And in terms of just client attraction, was the source of new clients, was it mostly the SEO work, or is it this combination of SEO and the referrals that had started to build out? Like, where were you finding these clients that allowed you to build and grow?
Absolutely. So I talk about having, I think it's like 7 or 8 different ways of clients hearing about you. I think that the trouble is if you only have 1 or 2 and then something happens to that, you're kind of in big trouble. So the way that clients were finding out about me, certainly SEO was a big part of it in the beginning. Having the website, and there's a concept called A/B testing, right? So figuring out of the website, what's converting the most people, what if we mess around with it like this? And I think people make the mistake of, they set up a website and they're like, okay, I made a website, I'm done now. But what they don't realize is websites change the way that, a website that you made 2 years ago probably isn't as relevant as it should be anymore, because Google changes their algorithm all the time. So like even making sure it's mobile optimized is really huge. So, making sure that the website has the RSS feed of your blog to your homepage. So making sure that it's constantly seen as new and relevant, whether that's a blog or an Instagram feed or something, but just making sure that the website, the homepage is not static, which, it means it's constantly being updated. So clients were finding out about us through web, through my $20 off postcards, which I was leaving everywhere with every possible other business connection. So I'm a big fan of making friends with lots of other local businesses. Back in the day, this looked like literally knocking on doors, giving them cards, asking them for their own marketing materials. A softer introduction to that we do now is using geotagging through Instagram to meet our neighbors online. Because you can go through Instagram to the places feature, and see, okay, well, who's the local juice bar or the local acupuncture studio, or where people are doing gym selfies at the yoga studio. And then you can introduce yourself to the yoga studio and say, hey, I'd love to bring, some marketing materials by, and I'd love to feature you on my website. And, maybe I can write a blog post about you guys and vice versa. And so we found a lot of great local business partnerships, because that yoga studio might have a few thousand yoga students. And if they write about you on their blog or do an Instagram takeover, all of a sudden your business is in front of a lot of new eyeballs. So I'm a big fan of making friends with all the local businesses. Another thing I like to do would be, blogging, I think is really important, because when you're putting out content regularly that's interesting to people, you can share it on Facebook, on Instagram, people engage with it. I think it's also really good to get press for your business and to be seen online as an expert through getting media. And you might say, well, I'm a local business. What do I need to be in the Wall Street Journal for or in Forbes for? But the thing is, when you have those logos on your website, you're seen as certainly an expert in your field, but also the incoming links from those important websites are really huge for your business. And when you do get quoted in any of those online publications or written publications, it's very exciting for your clients and friends and family to see, because they're like, ooh, someone I know is doing something really cool. And hacking the press was actually a really fun experiment that worked really well. And so I'd be happy to share a little bit about that if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally interested for myself, but I think it's one, just the strategies that you're using are they're ones that I talk about, but it's so funny that I think myself as a professional marketer, these are strategies that are like secondhand nature. But making sure that people apply them to a local business is a part that I really think that they're missing out. So I know I would love it. I think people watching or listening would love to hear about your press hacks.
Okay, so my press hacks, my favorite things. I'll tell you first what not to do. If you reach out to most publications, they don't care. It's very rare. Occasionally they might care a little bit, but for example, if you reach out to, let's just use the Wall Street Journal as an example, because it was the first one I tried successfully. It was the first one I tried, period. But if you reach out to them directly, they don't know who you are and they don't care about you. So it's just a waste of time. I realized I needed to I don't know anyone who works there at the Wall Street Journal, but I really wanted to have like a little quote in it, or write something for them. And I realized I needed to know someone who was there, but I couldn't find someone who was there. So I started doing a quick Google search. So Google has a search function for images, video, and then there's one for news. So news is really important because we want to make sure that when we're looking for stuff, it's recent, it's in the last 6 months. So I started looking for writers who had already written something for the Wall Street Journal in the last 6 months. Anything close to what I wanted to talk about. Better if it was like exactly what I wanted to talk about. So for example, I would search for things like massage or back pain or anxiety or stress, anything related to massage, quotes Wall Street Journal under the news section of a search. And what's cool is then we came up with all of these articles for that particular publication that had been written in the last, 6 months or a year, and about anything similar. And so I would click on those articles and see, oh, okay, this author wrote about back pain or back surgery or a sports injury, something or other, in the last 6 months for the Wall Street Journal. Cool. Who is this author? It's Jane Smith. Okay, so then I do a little research on who is Jane Smith, what's her email address. And it's amazing how many writers, first of all, have like a personal writing webpage where their email is perfectly accessible. A lot of them are also on Twitter, but you might have to do a little bit of digging. The goal is reach out to a writer first. And we like writers because they need pitches, number one. They already have a connection to the magazine that you're trying to pitch, number two. And they've already successfully sold something recently to that magazine, remotely related to what you're trying to talk about, which is great because they know that it's been successful and they'll likely replicate that success. So I reached out to the first writer that I could find. And this is where it gets really important. I've A/B tested the heck out of this. So subject line, they can't resist the subject line. It's just question about your article. Just super straightforward. Because if you write the pitch in the subject, they're just going to delete it. They don't know you. But question about your article. Usually people leave all kinds of weird comments on their articles, but nobody ever reaches out to them to ask a question. So that gets the most opens so far that I found. Subject line, question about your article. And then this is my 3-sentence approach to contacting the writers. Just say, hey, Jane, I loved your article about blah, blah, blah in Wall Street Journal, New York Times, whatever. I loved your article about this. Second line, I noticed this, and this is where you can get creative with it. I noticed this trend with my clients. I noticed this issue that people are regularly getting wrong. I noticed this, everybody's been surfing hurricane waves and hurting themselves. Like whatever it is that you're noticing, and be honest. Find something, think about something that people are doing wrong, that they often make the mistake of, that they, whatever observation you're trying to write about, I noticed this thing. And then the third sentence, have you done any research on this? Question mark. Big smile, put your name, make sure that in the signature of your email, you already have your website and what it is that you do. What's interesting about this approach is it's the softest pitch ever of all time. You're spoon feeding them a pitch, basically. Within an hour of sending that email, this woman called me and said, hey, that's really interesting. Can I ask you more questions about this? And I was like, sure. And then the next morning, full paragraph in the New York Times, Rachel Beider of Brooklyn, New York, saw a 12% uptick in her business, in the Wall Street Journal. And I was like, oh my God, it worked. So then I tried it over and over and over again. And that's how I've gotten into everything from Forbes to Refinery 29 to Inc. to Entrepreneur. And in fact, I actually wrote an article for Forbes about this exact hack because it's so successful. And in my consulting practice, I've taught it to all of my consulting clients, and it's how everybody's been getting press. You don't have to write a whole article for the Wall Street Journal. You just need one little quote that links to your website.
Yeah, that's an amazing hack. Yeah, that's absolutely perfect. And it goes back to, one, just from some of the massage therapists that I've had the chance to talk to, it's a space that I think most of them will be uncomfortable in. So many things go back to, in a way, it's B2B sales in a lot of tenets, and being able to say that I'm going to actually approach someone in a one-on-one way because I want a desired result is something that is so far out of so many therapists' comfort zone. But clearly it's worth it. And the results that you're able to get with that just overshadow, by and large, any sort of uncomfortableness. Let me ask, because I'm sure people were thinking this, like, yeah, that sounds great, but I'm afraid someone's going to yell at me. Did you get any like super negative emails, or is it mostly just ignored?
No, at the very least, they'll like ignore you, or maybe they'll say, that's really interesting. I haven't done a lot of research on that. Maybe I'll check it out. But like, nobody cares. That's the thing. Like, either they'll write about you or they won't. But worst case scenario, they'll just ignore it. And the good news is you've probably, if you're smart, messaged quite a few people at that organization or that, that company. And it's a numbers game. Just keep putting it out there. Keep trying it. And like anytime I have an idea, or a trend that I notice in my own company, like for example, there's a concept called newsjacking, which means when something newsworthy happens, you find a way to make it about your business. So recently, the United States, we had a government shutdown. That was like a couple months ago. And I was listening to NPR cooking dinner one night, and it was just infuriating how many people were experiencing a really, really difficult, challenging time. These government employees who were furloughed weren't able to pay their rent, weren't able to, sign their kid up for soccer, just this really sad stuff. And I was thinking about it as I was walking my dog, and I was like, you know what? We got to support those people. Let's give them free massages. So I made the announcement at my studios. I put it on Facebook. I put it on our blog. There's a press release website called Free PR. I think it's called prweb.com. It's a free press release site. And I put it out there for this week only. If you're a furloughed government employee and you're not getting a paycheck, come in and get a massage. I know it's a stressful time, and we got your back, literally. And we saw 87 appointments that week from specifically for free, which I know that's giving away a lot of appointments. But the news media attention that we got from that, what we call newsjacking, was huge. That was, I think it was like US News and World Report, ABC7. We got a ton of incoming links from that. And you can't pay for advertising like that. Like it was great for the business. It was great. My massage therapists were really happy. I was paying them for their sessions. So they were really happy to feel good that they were interacting with these people who were going through that. And in fact, the borough of Brooklyn gave us the Hero of the Month award, which was really nice, just for that. So, you don't have to give away anything free for newsjacking. People do it all the time on Twitter, for example. Like when Michael Cohen had quoted, "I trusted a man I should not have trusted." The Wing, which is a women's only co-working space, took a screenshot of that and said, "We've all been there, Michael." Like they made it about themselves. Newsjacking can work with humor. It can it's just a way that you can take something current and make it about your business and put it out there in a way that's funny or interesting or will garner media attention.
Yeah, that's an absolutely fantastic strategy. And that makes me think just on this topic of getting press and just being an expert, you're also an author. And so I wanted to make sure that we at least got a little bit of time to talk about press here, what the book's about, and then kind of, I guess, your motivation behind it and what it's done for you as a person, you as your business.
Absolutely. So Press Here is a book for anyone who is just starting out, who wants to know how to give a really excellent massage to their friends or family. So, it's probably not really appropriate for massage therapists who've gone through a formal education, but it's great for your spouses, friends, family, who at the end of the day, when you come home from doing massage, maybe you want one from your friends or family. So I wrote that because I wanted the challenge of, I love to be challenged, and I wanted the challenge of doing something I've never done before, which was a writing project. And I was really, really fortunate that I have kind of started a few smaller projects, and then Quarto Media, who's the publisher, actually approached me and said, hey, there's this wonderful series. We've done one on Reiki. We've done one on acupressure. Would you write the massage one? And I was like, who, me? I was like, I've never written a book before, and they were like, we'll talk you through it. And so that's how that came about. I was just that was a huge coincidence. I was massively lucky. And they had found me on Instagram, which is totally wild. And they're this tiny little publisher in London. And so that's how that came about. And it's been really great. We don't sell very many items out of my massage studios, but it's one of the best-selling items because it's bespoke. It's one of those things where I found that clients don't necessarily want to purchase things that they can purchase just anywhere, but for things that are really unique, like the book, I also make a candle. And that's a scent you can't find anywhere else. That's been the things that sell a lot. So,
yeah, that's really, really cool. And so since writing this book, I mean, is it something that I guess from a business point of view, which I'm really interested in, I know very commonly with businesses who are selling to other businesses, it's very common to, in one way, shape, or form, have a book written, because it really does help boost you to a place of authority. Since writing this book, is it too early to tell, or have you seen an uptick in business, or have you seen people started to change what they're saying or anything like that since the book's come out?
I'm not sure. I mean, it's been out, I guess it was released in January. So it's only been 3 months. It's pretty new. It'll be interesting to see. It's been fun to watch clients engage with it. And also because it has a ton of anatomy references. So it's very anatomy heavy, because I think that the best massages are ones that are rooted in anatomy. So it's kind of like driving. You want a roadmap, you want to know where you're going. And so it's been fun to watch, even in my own studios, the massage therapists use it as a reference point to show clients like, oh, here's the thing that we're working on, or here's what's going on with this. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's too early to tell. Yeah.
Then I wanted to ask, with all of the things that you've done so far, and I'm sure that there's more irons in the fire, just on your day-to-day, are you still practicing as a therapist, or is it more in the hands-on of the business side of projects?
So about the time I opened, I was massaging through Williamsburg, then I was massaging in Greenpoint. And I made the conscious decision to not do massage in my third location in Dumbo. And I stopped doing massage full-time in Greenpoint, or even part-time in Greenpoint, about, I want to say maybe a year and a half ago, specifically because there's a few things going on. There are 64 people now depending on me for income. And if I'm in a room for an hour or 90 minutes massaging clients, number one, I'm taking clients from my new therapists who I need them to see clients. Number two, it's kind of a disservice to the business, because that's a time that I should be using my skills to do things that I'm really good at, like getting them new clients in the door, making business connections, getting more funding, building more spaces. So I've transitioned away from doing the bodywork side. Though we do still do one free volunteer work event a month. So it's often a chair massage program that we have. There's a few organizations that we support locally. I love the volunteer work because I think it just brings together the whole company, and it's important for our company culture to really give back. So I'll get involved with our volunteer work side, but I'm not doing as much hands-on work, if at all hands-on work, just because the business side has really taken off. So my day-to-day is primarily focused on the growth of the business, strategy, thinking about how we can provide even more value to our clients, how we can bundle services, how we can offer something new or innovative, how we can stay current in our space, up to date on technology, preventing liability, looking at, the profit loss statement, the balance sheet, the cash flow statement. I'm a huge fan of QuickBooks Online for keeping track of your business expenses. I think it's just really important to stay on top of those things. And so, yeah, and sometimes I miss it. People ask, like, do you ever miss it? And it's like, sure, sometimes I do. I can always step in and fill in for someone if I feel like it. And I certainly have a boyfriend who benefits from me still doing massage on occasion. But I guess I want my life to be about supporting these businesses and also supporting other business owners. So I also see a few consulting clients through my wellness business consulting practice. And that's been really fun for me to be around the energy of new growth, and also just to work with people on a one-on-one basis about growing. And specifically, I work with massage therapists, acupuncturists. I've got some psychotherapists. Recently, I picked up a tattoo artist client, which is kind of weird and not related, but if it's small business and they're growing, it's the same thing, anytime you're in a service business. So it's been fun to be around the energy of that. I can't seem to sit still. I like to do a lot of different things. Sometimes I teach a class here and there about business, and I started working on a podcast recently, but it's just, it's fun to put myself out there and look for new opportunities. And mostly, if I'm honest, it keeps me busy in between opening these things, because opening a new one is the most fun for me. Like the new space, getting everything together, like decorating it. It's really fun. And I joke, like, I'm not allowed to do it for a couple more months until I pay back the loans from the last one. So I have to keep myself busy in between opening these things. It's been very important for me up until now. I don't want to take on major investment, like I'll take on loans and I'll take on debt, but I really don't want anyone controlling the way and the how of the business. So, I took on a brief investment for the last location and then paid that back in 6 months. And I just don't, so far I haven't taken on investment. It doesn't mean I never will, but that's an area that I'm still learning about. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned the consulting work that you did. To me, it seems like a very natural progression of what you've come through. And now you've not just done this once, but you've done this 3 times over. And I have a strong feeling that there's many, many more in the works for the future. So what was that transition like? Really, what was your mindset around, hey, I can start to help other business owners? And just kind of what does it look like working with you?
Sure. So in the beginning, I did not intend to be a consultant. What happened was I so quickly grew my private practice out of school that a lot of my classmates were like, hey, how are you doing this? And we were talking back and forth about it. And I was like going out to coffee with people and talking to them about it. And over the years, I realized I was spending a lot of time in my week talking to former classmates or friends of friends about how I started it and what my advice for them would be. And, I was getting a lot of questions, and then it became like friends of friends. And I realized one day I was starting to not feel resentful, but feel like tired by it, because I was spending a lot of time on this thing. And I realized, like, one of the first things I looked at is, what are people charging, and are they undervaluing their services, which is something that happens a lot in our industry because we're such nurturers. We want to take care of everybody, but we're not often valuing our services appropriately. It's like, when was the last time you raised your prices? Oh, 4 years ago. Well, it's probably time to raise your prices, and then I looked in the mirror and was like, how can I in good conscience, I need to actually start charging for my services. It's time. So I put up just a very simple website using Squarespace, and did a little SEO for that, and then just kind of left it and let it sit. And whenever a friend would be like, hey, can you just talk to my friend about this? I'd say, oh, sure. Have them book through my website. That's great. And then they were like, okay. And at the time I was charging like $100 an hour or something. And that worked great. And I had a steady flow of clients and it felt really good. And I was working with people kind of in an a la carte way. So if they needed me, I would give them an hour of my time, plenty of homework, and then our next session would depend on how quickly they accomplished that homework. So, and I still work that way. I've raised my prices over the years per my suggestions to my clients. And so now I'm up to $150 an hour in US, but yeah, it's been busier than slower, which is great. And it's just a nice complement to, the majority of my income comes from my massage studios. This is like a fun side project, but I love doing it. I think it's really fun. And yeah, I'm getting new consulting clients all the time, probably mostly through word of mouth referrals, search engine optimization, and through there's a lot of body worker Facebook groups that people will ask really basic questions or for feedback. And then I just give a lot of free advice there. And I think people find me that way as well.
So you've had I'm assuming here that we're not even anywhere close to the end of your career. So you've had a really good run so far. Looking back, kind of whether in the early days or even sometime recently, are there any major mistakes or decisions that you wish you'd just really done differently when you look back?
All of them, so many of them. There's I don't want you to think this has been a journey with a lot of tears, a lot of frustration, a lot of crying. I think, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things I wish I had done sooner is realize that I could name them all the same thing, that they could all be doing business as the same name. I think when you're starting a practice, consider, especially if you're thinking about growing, consider if it's hyper-local or if it could sound national, So that was just one for me personally. I think the biggest mistake I made was not asking for help sooner and not delegating sooner. I help out so many practitioners, I think now, especially because I wish that I had that advice, that feedback, that second pair of eyes. It's been invaluable for a lot of my clients, and I wish that I had done that earlier. I currently also have a business consultant that I work with because she knows how to level up from where I'm at. I can get people to the level that I'm at, but I always want to be learning and growing, making progress. So asking for help earlier, as well as I think delegation has been huge. So in the very beginning, I was doing the laundry myself, doing the cleaning myself, answering the phones, scheduling the appointments, doing the bookkeeping, doing the massages, paying all the bills. That's what you got to do in the beginning, which is great because then you learn how to teach other people to do it. And the first thing that I delegated at the time was spending the money to get online booking, which there was no free online booking. It was expensive at the time. And sending my calls out to a call center. So I found a boutique call center that had just a few people per suite who answered the phones. And I took phones off my plate entirely because when I was going into those 90-minute appointments, we miss a bunch of calls and then, it's not good for business. So over the years, the bigger the company has gotten, the more I'm able to delegate and to lead. So even something like my front desk folks all have dual roles. Yes, they answer the phones, they book appointments, they check clients in and out, but each one of them also specializes in something now. So one of them totally owns the blog and she's wonderful at blogging regularly. One of them totally owns Facebook and Instagram. Another one, she's really great with HR. She puts out all the job listings and calls all the references and gets those interviews set up. So over the years, I've gotten more comfortable. It feels like taking your hands off the steering wheel in a way, because it's very scary because you're like, oh, nobody's going to do this as well as I'm doing it, or they're not going to love it as much as I'm doing it. But the thing is, if you feel like you're spread too thin, you feel like you're failing all the time and you get burnt out. So you have to ask for help. You have to delegate. So I think when I think about mistakes that I've made, not doing those things sooner was huge. Like not delegating, not asking for help. Also, I think, boundaries is something that I've learned in a real way as the years have gone by. In the beginning, I think I felt like I'd have a client who really pushed my boundaries in a bad way. They'd show up later and later, or they'd cancel last minute. I've gotten much clearer about what my boundaries are and much more comfortable enforcing them. So, requiring a credit card to book, charging a client if they don't show up for their appointment, automatically rescheduling them if they're 20 minutes more or late for their appointment. That's one of those things that not having strong boundaries cost me a lot in the beginning of the business. And I think making sure to really honor those, be clear about them, and enforce them has been really helpful for my mental health. That's been huge. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Now, this might be, hope I'm not rehashing the same question in a different way, but I'm just curious if there's a different answer. Is there a piece of advice that you've gotten that you wish that you had had sooner?
There's a few. I mean, there's a few. One thing that I think is good to know is the biggest chokehold on any business is the owner's psychology. I'll say that again. The biggest chokehold on any business is the owner's psychology. It's not the economy. It's not the competition. It's not, anything outside yourself. It's your own psychology. So I think, in the beginning, there were a lot of things where I was like, I can't do this because, X, Y, and Z. And so identifying limiting beliefs is really, really important. Identifying where you think, I can't do this because, and then learning to question that. And if you're not able to do that effectively on your own, which most of us aren't, asking your friends and family, asking, your business coach or your advisor, or your mentor, or your peer group, how do they handle it? And even talking to people who are completely not in your industry at all about how they handle certain things, I think that that's been really helpful too. So, like my friend Mike owns a bunch of restaurants. And so asking him how he's dealing with certain staff issues, or asking him like, how does accountability work within your organization, or how does leadership work? Other people sometimes do things better than you're going to do them. And so exposing yourself to lots of different folks who are doing things that you want to be doing, I think is really helpful.
Yeah, that's a really, really fantastic answer. So I kind of want to ask this as we push here towards the end. I guess there's two questions that come to mind. One, and this is, I'm sure there's not one single point answer, but if you had to say, is there some sort of secret sauce for success?
I think like the golden rule of do the right thing, do the best you can, and show people you care. I think that would be it for me.
Yeah, that's a really great answer. And so given this, we're pretty much here at the end. Who knows who's going to be watching or listening? I hope it's, every massage therapist who's at a point that they're looking to grow. They need some sort of hub, whether it's that one location to two locations, the extra therapists, or just getting started. But given that that's our audience of people, are there any other words of wisdom, advice, any final thoughts about business, massage, life, anything that you'd want our watchers or listeners to hear?
Sure, absolutely. I think at the end of the day, the fear of failure is a really strong one that can hold you back. And so when you're trying something out, I think the fear of failing prevents you from trying things. So just conduct experiments. Say, you know what, I'm going to just conduct this experiment for this 2 weeks or this month and try something, and we'll see if it works. And if it does, we'll keep going. And if it doesn't, we'll try something else. But don't be afraid to try new things, to, spend a little money on this ad versus this ad, to, network with this person versus this person. Just don't be afraid to put yourself out there because, and to try new things and conduct experiments. I think I can be a little bit of a perfectionist, and that can get in the way of progress in a real way. So learning to feel comfortable conducting experiments, especially low risk ones, it's been a nice way to explore trying new things. So yeah, just put yourself out there, and I think a lot of wonderful things can happen from it.
Yeah, that's great. So the last question, if someone wants to learn more about you or press or connect with you in some way, where can they go?
Absolutely. So my business website is pressmodernmassage.com, and my consulting website is wellnessbusinessconsulting.com.
Okay, great. So thank you so much for sitting down, taking the time to do this. This has been a really fun conversation for me, and I'm quite positive that anyone who's watched or listened is going to get something out of this. They should probably go back, watch, listen again, take some notes, and start to apply the things that they have heard and learned here in this conversation. So thank you again so much for your time. Thanks everyone for watching or listening, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.